Alright, so Are You Afraid of the Dark? Tale of the Silver Sight was the first to, first of all, the first three-parter. There was another multi-parter, which I will be doing a review on. The Tale of Cutler's Treasure. I'm going to do a review on that two-parter at some point before the end of October. Because I'm going to do a top 10 favorite Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes. And I'm not counting that in there because it's a two-parter. All the other ones are one-parters. And so I got the top 10 here. And I got a bunch of honorable mentions, too, that just, yeah. So, Tale of the Silver Sight, though, was touted as an Are You Afraid of the Dark movie by Nickelodeon. 3 parts put into one. I watched it in the episodic version, though, on YouTube. Went from episode to episode. So it was a little bit different than what you would watch on there. And a little bit, my initial viewing of this, there were times I would often ask my grandma if I left her a VHS tape. Asked her to record something for me, she would. Because I didn't always have cable. And, she forgot, but recorded a little bit late. So, on my recorded copy that I had on VHS, it caught the end of part 1, and then the other 2 parts were all the way through. So, yes. So, a little catch-up, for those of you who don't know, Are You Afraid of the Dark is a Canadian anthology horror series that was ran on Nickelodeon from 1991 to 1996 before it was renewed in 1999 and lasted 2 more seasons. So it lasted 5 initial seasons, 2 additional seasons. The leader of the original Midnight Society was Gary. The only other character you need to worry about is Tucker, his little brother, who took over as leader of the Midnight Society when the revival happened for the additional 2 seasons, which also brought in Quinn, Andy, Vange, and Megan, which are the characters we have here. When you worry about any other characters, even though I was a little upset when I remember I first watched this and they said that bring back the original Midnight Society, or they were going to go looking for the original Midnight Society, but it wasn't that original Midnight Society, and we'll get that. So, at the beginning of this, so the story is basically Gary and Tucker's grandfather passes away from a heart attack caused by something otherworldly, and they found out that there is something called the Silver Side that the original Midnight Society had dealt with that is now coming back. Why? Never explained. But now they have to find it and destroy it. And they use help from the new Midnight Society. So we start with Gary's dream. Gary is walking into the meeting place at Midnight Society, and he comments on how they changed things since he's been there. And it looks, the area, the campfire area, looks exactly as it was in the revival series. But yet, with Gary commenting, I see you changed things around here, how would he know? It seems like he's surprised to see that things are changed, but it looks exactly like it does in real life. So how would he know what it looks like? This is his dream, as we find out there's a strange, weird, creepy little boy, and he turns around, and he gets scared, and he runs off. Gary does, and he runs into his grandpa. He then wakes up, and he gets a call from his grandma, telling him that his grandpa passed away. He and Tucker arrive at his grandma's house, and you're going to notice, if you've seen at least all of the original 5 seasons worth of episodes, that there are some familiar faces in this, and I will, point them out when I can. For instance, Gary and Tucker's grandmother is played by the actress who played Nanny in The Tale of the Lonely Ghost, Tale of the Lonely Ghost, back in season 1. Interesting little, I know they did it on purpose because there were some actors that were prominent, especially one actor later So he's given a note. Gary's given a note and a piece of record that says, listen to the music. I'm not going to remember all of them, but, so he reads this. He reads this piece of paper. We find out what it says. It doesn't make sense, but he says here, he goes, "It's my dream." I'm like, none of what we find out is written on that page was in his dream, other than his grandpa. So I don't know what he means by it, but he asks Tucker, he says, "You calling a meeting tonight?" Tucker goes, "Yeah, but I can cancel it." "Don't, because I'm going to go there." And, you know, you could say that Gary's dream was just a vision, which is how he knew what it was going to look like. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to yawn. It's 8:45, it's not that late. But, so he explains to them, and Megan figures out halfway through the story that this is real. That back in the 50s, these 5 friends, which are revealed to be the original Midnight Society, rolling up. Gene, that's their grandpa's name. Lane, Candle. Donna Tilton, Eleanor, and Bob McGorrell. Bruce. Bob McGorrell, right? Because Bruce McGorrell is the one, whatever. Anyway, so, when they were younger, they found this little trinket called the Silver Sight at a place like the Magic Mansion. So that gets a shout out. They found out it was actually evil, but it was too late by the time they figured it out. One of them, which is indicated to be McGorrell, hid it and wrote clues for each of the members, and saying that only when they come together will they stop it. But things went bad and it didn't work out for them. So yes, we split into different little sections here, and the first one is the general, and it's Gary and Tucker to go to see General Lane Candle, who is played by the same actor who played Shandu in the Magician's Assistant episode back in season 3 or 4-ish, 2. But it's good to see him back. He plays sort of an antagonist here, but not really. And he's rolling around in a wheelchair. Although we find out later he doesn't need it. And they mention the piece of the record and the Silver Sight, and he says he has to get out of storage. So they leave. We then cut to one of 3 times we see Gary's dorm room, where they get a phone call from Gary's grandmother saying someone's broken into the house. Now, watching this as an adult, it's obvious that it's Lane Candle, and how at least Gary couldn't figure it out is beyond me. I mean, they go to see Gary. They go to see the general, and then shortly afterwards, Gary's grandmother is attacked by someone asking about their grandpa's piece of the record. Obviously, it's him. So, they go there. They just miss the guy, of course. And Gary's going to take care of his grandma, sends Tucker to go get a piece of the record. He gets to the general's house. He's not there, of course, because he's out doing other things. And the strange little boy is there. I should mention the strange little boy is played by Ryan Cooley, who would go on to play J.T. York on Degrassi. So, he was also in My Best Friend's an Alien before this, so around this time. Whatever. And he lets him in the house, Tucker in the house. And this is where I came in, really. Tucker finds the piece of the record, but he's attacked by these terracotta warriors. They're like statue things. This is where I came in. My original recording started here, where he fights them, and then he is able to grab the record. I think not all the eyes are brown, I think is the clue on there. And then all of a sudden the warriors stop attacking. Why? Because he grabbed it and that was the end game? I don't know, but he leaves. The little boy laughs and he goes, "You never got alive," or something like that. And then we end episode 1. Episode 2 gives us a recap of them all agreeing. And then we have 2 different stories here. There's the prom queen, which is Donna Tilton. And we have, I'm just going to separate them into 2 halves because they got to go back and forth. We have Quinn, and he goes to this junkyard where he's chased by a dog, and he meets this guy who is Donna Tilton's ex-boyfriend, played by the guy who was in the Tale of the Dark Dragon, Tale of the Hatching, with the egg and the school. He was in that one. And then he was Donna Tilton's ex-boyfriend. He explains that all of a sudden he was like a star football player. He got injured. Apparently he still has the injury because he needs a thing to walk around with. And while he was in the hospital, Donna snuck around with Lane Candle. They went on a little drivey drive, and Donna didn't make it. How they knew that going to this guy would lead them to what they needed is beyond me, but he has the piece of the record. I believe it says with many ups and downs. I don't know exactly. But he agrees to give the piece of record to Quinn if he gets a drawing of Donna that Lane Candle stole. By the way, Lane Candle's last name, I think, is a tribute to one of the producers, Ned Candle. I think. And on the other half of this, we have Megan, who is looking for the descendants of Eleanor. They are broke, but they live in the sewer because of tax fraud or something. When she mentions the silver site, they flip out. I don't think either of these 2 were in previous episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, but I know that the person playing the mom was Mystery ships soon. The man thinks the boy looks. Thinks he knows it all. Yeah, that Venus talking to the wall. Yeah, it was really super strong. Android Thelma. Thelma from Space Cases. I had to sing the song to remember her name. She was the Android Thelma from Space Cases. Interesting fact there. But they don't tell her get out. But the son, Jim, who has a thing for her, who had later go on to be in, who was already in the episode, the Tale of the Forever game, earlier on in season 6. So the first episode of season 6, by the way. So he tells her to come back. But when she does, Lane Candle is there. And again, watching it this time with a critical eye, like, apparently Gary had told her that she's wheelchair bound. And by the way, in between this, after Quinn gets told he needs the picture, and then she goes back, they do the dorm room scene again. So, watching this on the first view, it gets confusing when they go back to it. But, yeah. And she goes, "What are you going to do? Run over me?" Lane Candle, and he stands up. And I'm sitting there watching it now, I'm thinking, well, yeah, what did you think? I know you were probably told by Gary that he was in a wheelchair, but how did he get down there? How is he moving around in the sewers? He has to be able to walk. So he chases her out, and then we have a pointless scene of the weird little boy tricking her, and I think he's going to get hit by a train, and telling her to walk away from it. I don't necessarily know what these warnings are doing, because we find out later that the little boy wants them to find it. I don't know. But she goes back to the ransacked living quarters and finds a piece of the record. I don't know what it says on that one. I don't remember. But, yeah, so this leads us to our final part. The Riddle Man. Bob McGorrell. Bruce McGorrell. Bruce McGorrell was the one that died. He's the one that hid the silver sight. He's the one that died. And, he was a riddle man. I do like the joke that they've looked all over the place for him, and then they can't find him, but then they look in the phone book and they find him. Bruce McGorrell, Bob McGorrell, runs Playland, which was the setting for the Laughing in the Dark, Tale of the Laughing in the Dark. So, and the actor who plays Bob McGorrell was the grandpa, I think it was, in the Tale of the Room for Rent. So it's interesting to see him back, and he shows him, and he says that Bruce said to only show the clue if there was more than one person, and then he doesn't know why, and neither do they. And I went, this time watching, of course, more thinking, why don't you know why? Like, I understand maybe Bob doesn't, but they were told explicitly that Bruce would only show them where the silver sight was if they were all together. Obviously, he wanted more than one person to show up to try to destroy the silver sight. He wanted them all to be together. So that makes sense. I don't know why they didn't get it, but I did. So it's a hint, it's a little clue, with an address that leads them back to the McGorrell childhood home, where they find out that the little drawing on there is not a fortune for, as you may think of, because it's the little thing with the two. It's a well, which there's something in there. It's not a little boy, although they do see the little boy a couple times, or at least Vange does. But by the way, this is Andy and Vange doing this. There are only two left, but they get the piece, and not all the eyes are brown or something like that. I don't know. So with many ups and downs, I don't know. So they put it all together, listen to it, and it's a bunch of talking. But Andy figures out that it's actually the carousel at the at Playland, and that not all the eyes are brown means that one of the eyes is a different color. They're saying it could be silver. It's blue. They painted it blue, and they find it. They all have to touch it because, together, they pop it out, I guess. How we got it in there, I don't know, but it comes out. And then we get confusion. For them, not for the audience. Or at least it's supposed to. The little boy comes out and claps and says that, you can have whatever you want. I'm here to help you. But then Lane Kendall shows up and said, no, don't trust him because he's the one who caused all the problem and the pain. Then a bunch of the other people, the two Eleanors, the two from Eleanor and the guy from the junkyard somehow, and Bob's the only one that makes sense because he runs the place, he lives there. But they're all just standing there, and Gary's grandmother. And Gary, lashes out at Lane, but then turns on the little kid. You're my true enemy. And he turns into this old little thing. It's a great effect. Even today, it still kind of stands up pretty good. And it just, there's all the souls that being flew out. And then they can see it on the carousel, and he and Lane, they kind of make, and that Lane says, your grandfather will be proud of you, son. And then as they turn to leave, one thing I want to mention before I end this is when they're ready to go after the silver sight, this kick-ass version, which is the end credits version for the later two seasons of the Are You Afraid the Dark thing starts playing. It's the version that plays at the end of the episodes for the last 2 seasons. That kind of a fast-paced version for the first 5, but I like this one too. So they're getting ready to leave. Gary sees his grandfather standing there, of course, proud of him. He does hug his grandmother before this, and then this is the part I'm always don't like. We see that this is all a story being told by Gene to the rest of the original Midnight Society, and they say it's a good story. There is one big problem with this. Technology. How would Gene have the foresight to know what technology we have? I know a lot of the stuff is similar, but there's just... I don't know, maybe there's not a lot of different technology in there, but it just doesn't work for me to say that he was telling this story. How would he know that he's going to have grandchildren named Tucker and Gary? Did he foretell this? Did he give them the idea? His son the idea? I don't know. I really don't know. It never made sense to me. It was a nice little, thing at the end, but it just doesn't, we had the actors take pictures and stuff. Let's just throw them in at the end. But it just doesn't make sense. Overall, though, I will say this. If I counted this in my top 10, this would be my favorite. I love this thing. But I can't count it. Because it's multiple, and I'm only going singulars, and I'm not counting Cutler's Treasure either, which I'll get to at some point. Cutler's Treasure, Cutler, whatever. This is solid to me. Very little negative with it, really. The only thing I don't like is the ending part. There's just small little nitpicks throughout. But, I do recommend watching this. It's on YouTube. You just gotta search it. There's 3 separate parts, But, so what are your thoughts on Are You Afraid of the Dark? Tale of the Silver Sight. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I've been Scotty. I'll see you in the next one.